God bless you and welcome to Impacting Your World with Ben and Joy. My name is Joy Simmons and I am here today with a very special guest, just like I was yesterday. And this is my sister, Carla Davis Tillery. Thank you so much for just consenting to actually sit down and talk with me today and our viewers. We started talking yesterday, and what we're doing is we are really looking at Carla's life because she is a very successful person in her own right, and you're going to be able to pick those things out. But what we're doing is we're pulling out the principles that she has followed in order to get to where she is, right? And that's what I really want you to take from this. Knowing who you are, and being able to get to where it is that you want to be, what God has designed you to be. You got to know your purpose, and once you find out your purpose, then from there you want to be able to start pursuing that purpose. And so what we talked about yesterday, Carla, was just two key things that really came out. Was one, knowing who you are, okay, and understanding that who you are is extremely, extremely special. Because in Psalms it says that you are fearfully and wonderfully made, and that your soul knows it right well. And she talked about sitting down, looking at her skill sets, looking at her gifts, looking at her talents, and then looking at her strengths and weaknesses, taking her strengths and embracing them and moving forward to break down barriers. You also talked about being very disciplined in order to do to make it to the levels that she's made it. Now, we talked a lot yesterday about being first in a lot of things, okay, and breaking down barriers, and especially in the field that she's in. She's in the field of engineering, so you're a civil engineer, but you actually do different components of that, and you talked about that yesterday, so you can kind of remind everybody.
Sure.
But you were went through, left Fayetteville, North Carolina, went to Greensboro, North Carolina, where you went to North Carolina A&T. You were in the first graduating class in their civil engineering program. You left there and you went to the University of Connecticut at Storrs, right?
Storrs, Connecticut.
At Storrs, and you were the only black female in that particular engineering program and finished your master's degree. Then you were the first black female being employed in the different companies that you've been in. So we've been talking about breaking down barriers and busting through some, being the first, and the disciplines and the character that you needed to do that. So let's kind of go back and talk just a little bit about that. We're going to keep moving forward.
Okay.
So again, I just remind everybody, what is it exactly that you are doing, that you do at Fitzgerald and Holiday, where you work?
Okay. I'm currently the Vice President of Operations at Fitzgerald and Holiday. We are a transportation and environmental planning firm based out of Hartford, Connecticut. What we primarily do is planning. We work on a lot of planning projects for government agencies such as state departments of transportation, municipalities. We'll work with communities to do community planning and design. And one of the things that I learned about my skill set, which is one of the things we were talking about earlier, is about really identifying who you are, understanding what your skills are, and enhancing those. I found out that planning and designing and constructing really were also my gifts.
Okay.
And so I see a big difference between skills and gifts, and skills are sort of they can be taught abilities, but gifts have a supernatural ability over them, over your skill sets. And what I've found a way to do is utilize my skills in ministry.
Okay. So we're gonna talk about that. And we're gonna move to the ministry phase. But before we get there, I want to talk about your career path within Fitzgerald and Holiday, because that's been pretty phenomenal.
Okay.
In terms of how you have been able to progress, and I know you can't necessarily go into specific details, but I want to talk about some of the challenges in moving from one level to another level, because it required you to stretch out to do something. So let's kind of talk about
So when I started at Fitzgerald and Holiday, I started off as a transportation planner, which is kind of like entry level for the most part. And the way our structure is within the company is that over time you'll have more opportunities to manage projects, and then you'll manage small projects at first, small budgets, and then you'll grow and continue to manage more projects that might have more substance, larger budgets. You might have a larger team. And that's kind of really the progression of growth within the company. And so that's how I basically started out. I started out as a transportation planner and worked my way up to becoming a senior project manager, where you're managing multiple projects across geographies, across disciplines within the company, and having large teams, working with sub-consultants at times as well. So it can be a long time to kind of grow in terms from where I started to where I am. I've been at the company for over 20 years. And so, but I think my persistence, my ability to kind of understand how to maneuver myself, because you have to understand the environment that you're working in and understand how to strategically posture yourself in a position for growth.
Now that's so key, because when you start talking about maneuvering, I know there were times that any of us can have where we are working with people, and sometimes the people that we work with can create obstacles for us. It can make our working environment quite difficult. And I remember lots of conversations that we had about.
Yeah, we won't mention no names.
We're not mentioning names. I'm not gonna call no names. I'm not gonna call no names. But you know what name I'm thinking about.
Okay, yeah. So I cried a million nights, and yes, I did call
you.
Okay.
Yeah. So I want to talk about, because what's interesting, we're not calling names, but how you've gone from certain people not being an obstacle at all, and you being in a position where you're making the decision. Yes, let's talk about it.
So that's interesting. So everybody some days will have a supervisor that just, you don't like them. I mean, you don't work well with them. They don't see who you are. They're not trying to encourage you, promote you. And sometimes it's because of fear, or even they just don't have the ability to manage people.
Right.
And that's one thing I've learned. Managing a project versus managing people is two different things.
Yeah. Exactly. And and sometimes people who are project managers try to manage people, and they mess up the whole environment. So that's where we have to know whether we have that gift or ability.
Right.
And if you don't, stay away from the people aspect.
Yeah. So this individual was not very good at managing people. And so that created a huge issue for me. It almost felt like my growth was being stagnated. When it came time for my performance review, I didn't feel like they were very good reviews. I don't feel like they were honest and true and very constructive in the feedback. And so I really had to find a way to take the good with the bad and the ugly.
Okay.
And there was a bunch of ugly. And I had to figure out, how do I now maneuver myself where I can still grow in a company when you have a supervisor that's not really a people person, that doesn't know how to help you grow, advance, and develop. Okay. And that's the one thing I learned, that sometimes you might not find anybody who is willing to put their selves on the line to help you grow.
Wow. So when that happens, what next?
Okay, what's next? Well, call your sister. That's what you do. So I think it comes with really starting to pull on who you are, because it will test your character. You'll have to still do things in an ethical way. You'll still have to do things in a way where you can be seen in a good light. Mm-hmm. And so I had to be persistent about finding opportunities. I had to find my voice. I had to make my voice heard in terms of what I needed to grow and advance. And that can be very scary and risky, because you're putting yourself out on line and you don't know what you're going to get back. Mm-hmm. You don't know where they're going to say you're out of place. You know, this is your job, just do this. Mm-hmm. But I had to make my place known, and I had to make my voice heard. Right. And in order to do that, I had to create that opportunity to say, we need to sit and talk. I have some concerns about my growth here in this company.
Right. And so when you did that, you surprisingly, it was received.
It was received well, but at first it wasn't, though. At first it was, well, thank you. Thank you for, sharing your concerns, and we'll see what we can do. You don't know what that means.
Right.
They could have been preparing a pink slip for all I know. But thankfully, I still was praying about the situation, and I felt like I needed to be there. And so with that patience, because when you're waiting, you don't know what's happening during the waiting period.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not careful, you can take actions that can get you off track.
Right.
I almost wanted to leave. I was kind of preparing myself to say, okay, they're not responding, so I'll leave. And I decided to wait for whatever reason, just never could finish the letter or never acted upon it. And there were some changes of staffing along the way, and I ended up finding someone who really could mentor me, and they saw who I was, they saw what I had inside of me, and within probably 3 months after that person was in a decision-making ability, things started to change very drastically.
You know, something that you said that is so key. We talk a lot about this, is making soulish decisions. We talk about, we are spirit, we have a soul, and all that lives in a body. And what you said is sometimes when we're in the midst of something, we're stepping out on faith to go and to make this step. And because it doesn't happen when we think it's supposed to happen, we will allow our environment to affect us, and we make a soulish decision. We make an intellectual decision, or we make a fear-based decision. And if you move too soon, you'll mess the whole
get messed.
thing.
And I tell people, so many lessons learned, but one of the major lessons I've learned over the course of my life and my career: don't make a big decision out of emotion.
Yes.
When things are hectic and if you're crying, or if you're angry, even if you're too happy, sometimes you can make bad decisions. You don't want to make any big decision out of emotion. And if I had done that at the time because they weren't moving as quickly as I wanted them to, not seeing the change in the structure, change in the organization in a way that would allow me to grow, I could have made a choice that probably would not have ended well. I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
You wouldn't be the VP
but I
today.
wouldn't be. Yeah, you're right about that. I wouldn't be the vice president at the time. So I'm glad that I was patient. I'm glad that I found some kind of internal peace to kind of abide in during the waiting period, because during the waiting period when it's silent, that's very difficult. That's very difficult.
And people mess up during that waiting period.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just have to sit. We talk about one of the people that we really, really read and follow is Kenneth Copeland. He has this book called Faith and Patience, The Power Twins. And a lot of times we have faith,
No patience.
No patience.
Yeah.
And we end up messing it up. You have to have faith and patience in order to bring things into existence. And if you without that patience, you move to.
And just to put it in perspective, it was years.
Okay.
So the waiting period was not like a few months. It was a few months after, some years of some repositioning of people to come into the company and to kind of create a different structure in place. And so again, my career didn't really kind of take off until after a waiting period of years for the right people to get in the right position, the people that had the heart to see, to really be more people oriented and advancement, and that's when things kind of changed. But it was a few years. It wasn't like the next day.
I'm thinking about, as you're talking, Ben and I did a show, and if you all would think back, we talked about Joseph, and we talked about how when Joseph had a dream, and when he had that dream, how before the dream came into existence, things started happening to him. When he ended up in the pit, then he ended up in Potiphar's house, and then he ended up in the prison. Then eventually he was became second in command to Pharaoh. But what was interesting in our show, if you all recall, those of you who watch all the time, we talked about when he was put into the pit. At that time, the band of Ishmaelites started moving towards him. So even though he's in the pit, God has already prepared the Ishmaelites to be ready to come and buy him, to take him to his next place. So as you were talking, what I was thinking about is even as you were dealing with the situation, God knew where he wanted you to be. So he's already prepared these people to start coming to this company, to start reorganizing and restructuring. And that's what we have to believe in life, that where we are, God knows our end, and that he's preparing people. It may not look like it, you may not see them, but you got to be patient, because people are coming on the scene in order to reposition your environment to make it conducive to your success. And that's what was happening. You just didn't know it.
I didn't know it at the time, but I'm grateful for even the earlier times of isolation that I spoke about before, because when you're in a period of isolation, that can create patience because there's no one else around to lean on, and so you're waiting. You're waiting a lot to hear what's your next move, which way to go, how do I start to strategize different things. And so I think I'm grateful for a lot of the opportunities I've already had that have created some of that ability. I'm still a little impatient, but I've learned a lot in terms of not making quick decisions.
Right.
And not making decisions out of emotions.
Exactly.
So things were kind of being strategically set up for me to be in the place that I am today.
Right. Now let's talk about, because this is a lot to this, and I'm trying to encourage people in their careers. So things are settling down at the company. Now you get this opportunity
Yes.
to become a partner.
Yes.
Okay. Now, we think, oh, become a partner, that's just great. It is great. However, doing that and making that step requires some investment.
Financial investment,
Right.
yeah, and money,
Yes,
yeah.
okay. So, and a lot of times what happens is we want these opportunities, but we're not willing to do what's necessary to make that happen. Let's talk about that process.
Not willing, not ready, not in a position to take advantage of it.
Right. Now that's the key, because sometimes we have messed up in our lives so that when God creates the opportunity, we ain't got nothing to do.
So one thing Daddy always told us, he always said this, he he didn't have money, but he had access.
Right.
You want $5? You better thank God he can have access to it. He might not have had it on him, but he would get it to you. He had access. So that was one of the things that we grew up, that Daddy always told us, And so that always stuck in terms of what did that really mean. And he always talked about making sure your name meant something to banks, to creditors, establishing good credit. Don't bite off more than you can chew. As you know, money don't grow on trees. So, after hearing that all our life, we had to learn, well, where does money grow? It doesn't grow on trees. So, so I was able to take a lot of those things financially that we saw our parents do in terms of saving and having accounts for dedicated things and having a good name with your credit. I at least was able to do that starting off. So I didn't have the money, but I had access. And so with that, I was able to really just essentially take a loan to make the investment. When that kind of opportunity came, it was, I was amazed that I was one of the ones that she wanted to take in. Because sometimes you still don't see yourself as others see you.
That is so powerful, because sometimes we don't. Go ahead.
And so I didn't know that she would even have that much faith in me to ask me. The founder of the company was developing a succession plan. And as part of that, she needed some of the other people that she felt were leaders in the company to start to buy her out. And I was among that group. And so, of course, I felt honored. And I said, I'm gonna make this work. So we got to find a bank that's gonna give me a loan. So essentially, that's what I did. But of course, with some other smart planning, and my husband was on board because that would affect household,
right.
The household financial picture. But he was very supportive, and we were able to kind of create a plan, and we were able to make it happen. So
and that's key, okay? Because we haven't really talked a lot about Chris, and Chris is her husband. But having a supportive spouse is key. You can marry the wrong person and your whole life just be jacked up and you're off course, because when stuff gets ready to come up, you need somebody who's going to be on board with you and who can see the end and is willing to step out there too and take the risk too. Yeah.
So Chris and I, we've been married. It'll be 27 years in May, and we have 2 sons that are in their 20s. So I'm grateful that I've had a supportive spouse. And that he kind of sees who I am and is very supportive, whether I need to take out a loan, I need him to sign it, or whether it's just being on the home front when I'm traveling and doing other events. So it's important.
All right, so shout out to Chris.
Shout out to my boo.
Okay, now so you've taken this loan, you've bought into, now you are basically a partner, and I know that Ruth is transitioning, and so now things are just moving right along, because eventually she completes her transition out of the company. We now have a new president who you have been working with, and bam, an opportunity comes open, and you get selected for the VP, or did I skip a step?
No, it's something like that. So the ownership plan and succession is starting to take place, and we're still in the process of that. And as Susan is kind of growing in her role and becomes the CEO and president, she was one of my mentors, or is one of my mentors, and so we've been able to work very closely together. And she has been one who has really, in addition to Ruth, who's the founder, have both been very instrumental in helping my career advance within the company.
And that's how you ended up as a vice president.
That's how I ended up as the vice president.
So that's really good. Now, in that, all of that, you were still you had become a part of. Let me get this right. What is the Connecticut Chapter of Engineers? What is it called?
Okay, it's the Connecticut Chapter Institute of Transportation Engineers.
Okay.
And so there I was. I tell many students that I still work with that it's important to take advantage of professional organizations, getting involved, creating your brand, making sure that people know who you are as a professional. And so I decided to become a member of that organization. And the only way to really kind of create your brand in the industry is to get active. So I decided to join a committee. I was on the registration committee. So I could sit at the table and everybody would come to me. I didn't have to go out and network. Because when you have to go out and network, sometimes that's scary. You don't know what to say.
And you're the only black female.
I was the only black female, and it's not with so much weather you can talk about. You know? And so it's like, what else do I do? So I decided to get involved. And as being a part of the registration committee, anytime they did an event, the attendees will come to you and you check their names. So I was able to learn names. I was able to learn who they are affiliated with. And then they had an opportunity to meet me as well. So it was a great opener for me.
So this is a note. Put this down. When you join something, if you are an introvert, be on the registration committee.
Absolutely. Get on the registration committee. So that's what I did. And so as part of that, that was another first. I was the first black president for that organization. Yeah. So that was a great opportunity, and I've continued to stay involved with other professional organizations, and I'm also an active member of Women Transportation Seminar, and have had a chance to travel all around the country.
Right. Now I want to talk about one more thing with this. You were honored last year. I believe it was last year. Yeah, I think it was last year. I don't think it was.
Yes, last year. Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Yeah, and listen, because I don't have my notes. I guess I should have.
I don't either.
But you were honored. You received an award from the state.
It was from the Connecticut Chapter Women Transportation Seminar. It is an annual award, and it was called the Diversity Leadership Award. And I was very honored to get that award. It represented a lot for me in terms of not only the recognition on that level with all the people that were there, like the commissioner, the DOT, and it was a lot of people in high places there. So I'm grateful for that. But I think just the honor itself, to know that I was recognized for being an individual and a professional who is embracing and making movements towards having a more diverse workplace, diversity in our communities in terms of our work with the communities in which we work in. So that was a really great honor.
That's good.
Yeah.
Now, all this is going on.
Yes.
While at the same time, you started Proverbs.
Yes.
So now we're not talking about an individual who only is doing this career thing in engineering, but we're still talking about a family life and other goals and opportunities that she has engaged. So you can have a very full life. And remember, she said that she found out along the way that what her skills were, or what her gifts were, not skills. And so now you're able to use this in this nonprofit organization that you created called Proverbs. So let's talk a little bit about Proverbs.
So my husband and I started Proverbs in 2003. It's a nonprofit organization. It's a 501c3, tax status organization that really focuses on. We provided three main services. One is counseling and life coaching. We also provide youth development services, and we also provided educational assistance, such as scholarship programs, etc.
So this is really good. Now, all this is going on while she has this career path in this engineering firm, and she's raising her kids. Now, with Proverbs, you talked about the three things. So she said they provide life coaching. So along the way, you decided to become a what?
A life coach.
So you actually took classes to...
Yes, life coaching and counseling. We both have our certification. So I decided to kind of find a program that will allow me to kind of be able to do it, using, some intellectual background education and have some experience behind it so that I could really bring to the table some helpful strategies to help people move forward.
Okay, now I'm going to jump ahead and we're going to go back to the one in the middle. You talked about the education.
Yes.
And so I know for a fact that you all have been giving scholarships out
Yes.
to young people going to college. Tell me a little bit about that.
So we have been using part of our budget to be dedicated to give out to students who need financial assistance to go to college. A lot of these students that have been awarded scholarships through our program, they're probably not eligible for some of the other scholarships that are out there, but we saw it as a way to sort of fill in the gap for those who not only needed financial assistance, but also had a lot of them were their first generation going back to school. Some of them have parents who don't understand the process and needed some help. So we also did that, provided that service as well.
Great. Now, let's talk about the youth activities. Because you had how many basketball teams? Was it basketball?
Yes.
Okay, so all of this is going through Proverbs, right?
All of this is going through Proverbs. We have a part of our youth development services was to develop a mentoring program for some of the at-risk youth in the urban communities. And we provided an AAU basketball program that was my husband's vision to do that. And we were able to, on a yearly basis, we would mentor at least 20, 25 kids.
So this is such an important work, and I know we're about out of time, but what I want you to do is tell the viewers, how do they contact you if they want to either be involved in Proverbs because they want the services, or if they want to give to you to help support some of the programs that you're doing? How would they reach you?
Please give us a call at 203-248-2032. That is our office number for Proverbs. You can also reach us via email at carlatillery@proverbsinc.org or visit our website at proverbsinc.org. And those are some of the means in which you can connect with us. And so we would love to have more supporters to join in with us, partner with us as we continue to provide these services to our community.
All right, thank you so much. I'm so glad you've been able to share with us these past couple of days. Thank you for sharing your life, sharing your heart with our viewing audience. And so I hope that you all enjoyed it and that you can pull some principles away where you can be successful, and implement some of these skills in your life to move you forward. Please join us again next week for another life-changing discussion on impacting your world with Ben and Joy. And please remember that God designed you for impact.
My name is Nadine Aristill, and I am here at Faith Consulate. I got to the church because I was stationed here for Bragg, and I attended this church for almost 2 years now. And so far, since I've been here, I just love it here, and everyone are just so loving, and you can see the love of Jesus in their heart. And since I've been here, I just fell in love with the church and the ministry, and now I'm actually involved with the children ministry, and I'm just loving it because all the children, they know we have a different way of teaching them about God, and so far I'm just loving it. But here, my experience with Faith Consulate is just incredible, and I'm willing to stay. I love the church because of their focus and their foundation is based on faith. And this is my way to go. I've always have strong faith, and I felt like this is the place where I want to be, in the environment that I want for my life. Non mwen se Nadine Aristill, mwen isi na Fayetteville, mwen nan l'Eglise Faith Consulate. Mwen komanse vin l'Eglise la paske mwen soti, mwen nan stasyon Fort Bragg. Et depuis la rentre l'église là, expérience mwen vraiment bon parce que tout le monde qui dans l'église là, yo gen l'amour Jésus dans cœur yo. Yo vraiment accepté moi l'aime de venir. Pour qu'on y a moi senti moi bien, moi senti la caille moi parce que pour fondation y a montré nous des ministères qui parler de la foi, yo gen bon la foi. Et moi-même, moi remets ça tout parce que moi gen un gros frère et moi senti que c'est moi là quand moi chaque fois moi venir l'église là. Moi gen pour moi ou pour venir visiter l'église là, moi gen pour moi ou na fait counseling.